Instantly staking a claim in the center, this pawn opens diagonals for the queen and bishop. Immediately contesting the center and developing a piece offers immediate flexibility for black's pawn structure. Developing the knight here supports a central pawn push and prepares kingside castling. Establishing central pawn presence immediately, this move confronts white's knight and opens lines for black's pieces. Opening the center like this forces immediate confrontation and sacrifices a bit of pawn safety for active piece play. Solidifying the pawn center, this move prepares a robust pawn chain and offers substantial defensive support for the d5 pawn. Solidifying the center, white prepares to develop the bishop and secure the d4 pawn. Solidifying the center, this prepares to develop the bishop to its natural square, aiming for harmonious piece play. Developing the knight to d2 prepares to reinforce the center and supports a potential queen's knight maneuver to a more active square. Challenging the center's structure, the knight bravely ventures forward, seeking active squares and potential skirmishes. Aiding central pawn breaks and eyeing the kingside, bd3 solidifies the center and prepares for future pawn advances. Escalating the pawn storm on the kingside initiates a fascinating positional gamble. Centralizing the knight at e5, this move boldly challenges black's pawn structure and prepares a kingside initiative by potentially opening the f-file. This knight tucks in, bolstering its central presence and preparing to challenge the white knight's outpost. Unleashing the queen forces a response, disrupting black's pawn structure and potentially targeting the king. Shielding the monarch from that immediate queen check creates a defensive pawn wall, though it weakens the kingside structure considerably. Sacrificing the knight to shatter black's pawn shield opens, devastating attacking lines towards the exposed king. The knight retreats, sacrificing its influence over the center and allowing white to consolidate control of the crucial dark squares. Recapturing that knight opens lines towards the enemy monarch, forcing a difficult defensive posture for black. A fascinating positional skirmish unfolds as black anchors the rook, ready to contest the g-file and prepare for potential pawn advances. Slamming the knight into the enemy's rear disrupts black's kingside development and opens a direct assault. Assuming the black king's safety now becomes paramount, this recapture aims to consolidate material while opening lines for counterplay. Liberating the queen's bishop offers attacking potential, but it weakens the kingside pawn structure considerably. Reclaiming that knight, black initiates a crucial structural repair, aiming to solidify the king's safety amidst the open lines. Unlocking the central files with the bishop's recapture opens, attacking avenues against the exposed black king. Sacrificing material for tactical complications to disrupt the white king's safety seems incredibly risky at this juncture. Securing the king's safety with a daring castling move, white prioritizes king position and initiates counterplay on the open queenside files. Bringing the king closer to safety, but opening lines for white's pieces along the newly liberated g-file. Placing the rook on the g-file now pressures the weakened kingside and prepares for an assault on black's uncastled monarch. Suddenly, the queen retreats, seeking sanctuary on the g8 square, but this quiet retreat leaves the kingside exposed and vulnerable to further assault. Regaining the sacrificed material secures a pawn advantage and frees the g-file for future attacks against black's exposed monarch. Reclaiming material is essential, but the queen's new central post creates immediate tactical challenges for your king. Unleashing a pawn storm to crack open the kingside, aiming to expose the vulnerable black monarch. Unleashing this pawn immediately seizes the center, creating a dynamic battlefield with open lines for both sides. Opening that central file offers a pathway to attack the exposed black monarch, but leaves your own king somewhat vulnerable. Instantly demanding counterplay, this queen dive aims to disrupt white's king's safety and exploit the open files. The queen's sortie to h6 intensifies the assault on black's exposed king, leveraging the open lines created by the pawn structure. Securing the queen's retreat and reinforcing the pawn chain is paramount now, This maneuver allows for a more solid defensive structure, unleashing the queen to eye the king's precarious position, while simultaneously preparing to sweep the g-file. Developing the bishop here fortifies the queen side and prepares for potential pawn advances or a smoother transition into the middle game's complexities. Retaking that pawn immediately opens the g-file for your rook, a crucial step in pressuring the exposed black king. Unleashing the knight to pressure the f2 square, this move injects immediate tactical danger for white's already exposed king. This repositioning aims to exploit the undefended g2 pawn and pressures the weakened dark squares. A bold repositioning. The knight eyes the vulnerable king's flank, aiming to exploit white's potentially exposed monarch and open lines for counterplay. Repositioning the rook to the open file aims to pressure black's isolated pawns. Discovering a check forces white's king into a more exposed position, disrupting its castled safety. The rook's forced retreat clears the d-file, offering a potential path for development and peace activity. Seeking refuge, the black king ventures towards the queen side, hoping to escape the rampant pressure and perhaps regroup. Repositioning the rook to a more active file, aiming to pressure black's compromised queen side and potentially penetrate. Solidifying the center and preparing to challenge the open g-file after the exchange on g2. Unleashing a surprising royal check, aiming to disrupt black's defensive structure and exploit the open lines. Navigating back to the center, the black king seeks refuge, but the open files still offer white significant attacking potential. Attempting to exploit the open file, white repositions the bishop, seeking to tie down black's king and potentially launch a queenside attack. Reorganizing the bishop to a more active square, aiming to reinforce the kingside defense. Unleashing a killer blow to expose the weakened king, shattering any hope of safety. The black king, once shielded, now ventures into the perilous open. The king is trapped, a stunning checkmate orchestrated by the rook's rampage across the board.